Welcome to the Academic Woman Amplified podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, tenured full professor, mom of three, and firm believer that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hey there, listeners. We're taking a little podcast hiatus from creating new episodes until September, and we'll be recycling some of my favorite ones. The ones I hear from you all are the most valuable, just in case you've never heard them. And this recycled episode is one of my favorites because it's all about asking for and getting what you want, particularly around professional development funding. Now, I know that some of you are in this process right now because you're thinking about our Amplify program. If you've applied, then maybe you're working with your university to pay for that program. So even though some of what you hear in this episode might be a little dated in terms of what the program is like, don't worry, the advice here for how to ask and get what you want is absolutely timeless. I really hope you enjoy this episode about securing professional development funding, and we'll be back with all new episodes in September. There are some things that really get on my nerves about academia. One of them is the assumption that we should know how to do the job. I mean, we have PhDs, right? But how on earth does the process of getting a PhD prepare you for managing all the things like getting your writing done, keeping your pipeline flowing, teaching new preps, and serving on all the committees? Well, guess what? It doesn't. In fact, there's a huge mismatch between what we learn in our PhD programs and what we have to actually do in the day-to-day life of being a university professor. And that's why we need professional development. So that is really what I'm on a mission to do. That's what this podcast is about. It's about professional development. Because what I want to do is pull back the curtain on the how-to of centering your writing, managing your career, and feeling really good about it instead of feeling frazzled and overwhelmed. The goal of all my professional development programs is to teach a different way to do academia, one that's more supportive, more compatible with caring for ourselves and others. Frankly, that should be the mission of your university too. They hired you, they want to keep you. It might not seem like it sometimes, right? But they actually spent a lot of money recruiting and hiring you. A lot of time, which equals money to the administration, a lot of personnel, a lot of work went into selecting you for your tenure track job. Your administration actually really wants you to succeed. They want you to get tenure. They want you to get promoted. They want you to stay there. They just, spent too much money recruiting you. They definitely want to keep you. So guess what? They should be paying for your professional development, but they never will unless you ask. So in this podcast episode, I'm going to be talking through 3 steps to successfully requesting professional development funding. All right, let's start with step 1. Step 1 is identify all the possible sources. Now, many of you are probably thinking, this all sounds great, but my university doesn't fund professional development, or, every time I talk to the administration about anything, they say that there's no money for anything. But I want you to just think again. I've been offering professional development to women professors for a long time, and I have seen everyone from students to full professors get funded. I've had people use their startup and grant money and have their universities actually find funding after they swore that there was none. One thing that I've learned from my broke university is that there is always money somewhere. You just have to know where to look and who to ask. So I'm going to talk now about 4 possible sources for professional development funding that you can explore. And I suggest that you tap all of them. So what you should be doing is thinking, as I'm mentioning these 4 different possibilities of sources of professional development funding on your campus, I want you to be thinking about who are the people I need to contact on my campus? How can I find out information about these different offices and places? And start to create for yourself an actual little document or some notes about the names of these different offices on your campus, because they could be called different things on your campus, and then finding out who the contact person is so that you create a little sheet of information for yourself. All right, here's 4 possible sources of professional development funding. The first one is your own startup or professional development funds. So lots of people, especially when they first get hired onto the tenure track, are hired in with startup funds. And you might be thinking, I can't use my startup funds for that because I told them that I was going to use it for buying these computers and this lab equipment. But actually, in my experience, those budgets are pretty flexible. So if as you're using your startup funds, as you're using those, if you start to find that you want to shift how you use them, usually all you have to do is check with your budget office and just get the okay. So if you say, okay, I want to participate in Kathy Mazek's Amplify program, it costs X number of dollars. Can I use that for my professional development funds? And pretty much everyone who has asked has gotten a yes from their university. So you might have a little pot of startup funds or a big pot of startup funds. You might also have, yearly or periodic professional development funds. And those can also be used to fund a program such as Amplify. Of course, many of you are thinking, I don't have those funds. Don't worry, I'm getting to you. But the first place to think about is your own startup or professional development funds, okay? The second place to look, or the second place to go, is to your department chair and dean. So your department chair and dean are probably not advertising that they have professional development money. They might be, but many have it anyway, whether they're advertising it or not. But you need to ask, and you need to make a good case for why they should use it on you. What will be the outcomes that are important to them? So that's something we're going to talk about in step 2. But for now, think about, from your chair or dean's perspective, what will I bring back to the university after I've participated in professional development? So the second place to ask is your department chair and your dean. The third place to ask or to look for professional development fundings is a professional development office or faculty support office on your campus. Even offices of teaching and learning, like many times campuses have support centers for teaching and learning, they will often have some professional development funding. And if even taking a writing program, if you can make the argument that it supports your teaching, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later in this podcast, how you might do that, then possibly they could be completely or partially funding some professional development experience that you would like to invest in. So if your campus has a professional development office, obviously that's an important place to look. But if it's not called the Office of Professional Development, think also of other types of faculty support offices like Centers for Teaching and Learning and other places on campus that might fall into kind of that faculty support category as places that you could ask for funding. And sometimes I don't really encourage you to to say, after I participate in this program, I'll come back and I'll offer 6 workshops per semester, for your research center or for your faculty development office. No, I actually don't think that you should promise the moon and stars, but you might think of a very realistic thing that you could do to give back to that center if they fund you. So maybe 1 workshop or something that is more realistic. Don't promise the moon and stars. They should be funding your professional development because it's the right thing to do, not because of what you're going to give them in terms of on-campus workshops in return. And the 4th place to look to ask for professional development funding is your faculty diversity office or your equity office, okay? If your campus has a faculty diversity office or equity office, you can ask them to fund your professional development as an academic woman. There are plenty of stats that reveal that women, especially women of color, are less likely to get promoted in higher education. And what is the key to getting promotion and tenure? Well, it's writing. So if you're looking at a program like Amplify, which is a faculty writing accelerator program, then you can make the argument very clearly that stronger focus on writing and publishing will help promotion. And then by helping you with promotion, they are getting more equity in their professorate. So for that reason, your equity and diversity office should be paying for your writing development. All right. So step number 2, connect to the strategic plan. So this is grant writing 101. The first thing you need to do when you get to your university, it's not the most exciting thing to do, but the first thing you need to do is get a hold of your university's strategic plan. Because whenever you ask for funding, whether it's for professional development funding or grant funding, you want to be connecting back to the institution's goals. So a lot of us think about professional development funding as being personal, right? Like, oh, this is for me to help me. And while it absolutely helps you, when you have a better grasp on how you're managing your time and the ways that you can be better within academia, if you're less likely to burn out because you participated in professional development funding that teaches you time management and stress management and how to get ahead in academia without burning out, if you do that, you are actually making a really valuable contribution to your institution. So all you need to do is figure out what your university's strategic plan is saying that they're going to be focusing on. So I'm going to guess a couple of things that are in your university's strategic plan. And one is retention of faculty. So they probably have something about recruiting and retaining talented faculty. And we really hope that they have something that says that they want to recruit and retain more women faculty or more faculty of color. And you want to find those places in the strategic plan and pull the wording, exact wording from the strategic plan. So your university strategic plan is supposed to be what guides the administration's decisions. It's supposed to be a map of where they're taking the institution, and thus it should be a map of where they're investing their money. They should be committed to that plan because that's how they justify themselves to accreditation bodies, right? So when your university goes through an accreditation process, what they're showing the accreditation board is like, okay, here's the strategic plan and here's how we're implementing it. So them funding your professional development is a way that they can show accrediting bodies that they are implementing and taking action on their strategic plan. It's basically putting their money where their mouth is. Okay. So if you want support, you need to intimately know that strategic plan and quote it directly when asking for funding. The more clearly you can connect the outcomes of the professional development program that you choose to the strategic plan, the more likely your administration is going to say yes to funding you. And again, we're going to talk a little bit later in the podcast. I'm going to give you an example of ways you can connect to strategic plan and different university strategic objectives with the example of my Amplify program. Okay, step 3 in securing professional development funding is ask and keep asking. So I'm going to give you a strategy for asking, and we're going to talk a little bit about mindset around asking. So you need to start asking today, okay? And ask at all levels. Start with your department chair and then keep going up the ranks. So if you go to your department chair and you say, okay, I want to participate in this Amplify Faculty Writing Accelerator. It's only for women. The university strategic plan says that you want to recruit and retain talented female faculty. So I think that the university should fund my participation in this program. If you say that and then your department chair says, wow, we would really love to, but we don't have any money, then what you say is, that's okay. Will you write me a letter of support so that I can ask the dean? And then you can even have a letter of support ready with some wording ready for your department chair and have them write and sign a letter of support for your participation in the program. And then you go to the dean. And the same thing. If the dean says, wow, this sounds like a great program, but I just can't fund this because there's no money right now, you say, excellent, no problem. Would you write me a letter of support to the provost? And keep going up the ranks. But the key is don't let one level of people saying there's no money, don't let that stop you from asking higher up, because we know, and just think about this and start talking to people at your university. The administration sits on pots of money that they can pull out when they want. And so you just have to make your best case so that they pull out that money for you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the mindset behind asking. So I think especially for women, we have this idea that asking for more is greedy, that we're going to look like we think we're so special, and you're not supposed to think that you're so special. You're supposed to think that you're good, but not outstanding, because walking around saying or thinking that you're outstanding seems like bragging, right? It seems like I'm showing off. And all of those messages, think of your girlhood on the playground. How many times did people say, oh, you're showing off, or look, you think you're so hot. All of that is in our heads as we go to ask for more. So here's how we need to change our mindset around asking. A couple of things, like I've already mentioned, it is in your university's best interest to keep you from burning out, and to not have to recruit another person to replace you. It is in their best interest to do that. So sit with that confidence that says, they chose me out of a pool of so many other people that they could have chosen for this position. They're going to want to support me. So the first thing you need to do is rethink the messaging inside your own head that you're telling yourself. So rethink the story that you're telling yourself about your worth to the institution and your value. Because the academic market is so saturated, I often hear women, even women who have gotten tenure track jobs at very, very prestigious research universities, I hear them using language like, oh, this was a fluke, it was random, it was an accident. The fact that you were chosen for your job was not an accident. You earned it. It doesn't matter, or it matters, but I know that what you're thinking is, but there were so many qualified candidates and they picked me. So it's random, right? Because any of these qualified people could have gotten the job. That's not really true. What's really true is that there were so many qualified candidates and they picked you, and all of those other candidates are also deserving of full-time work and tenure track work. They're deserving of it too. But just because they're deserving of it and they didn't get it doesn't mean you don't deserve it. That's really, really important, and a big mindset shift. The more saturated I see the job market getting, the more I hear women talking as if their landing a job was a crapshoot, instead of their landing a job being the result of the quality of their academic work and the willingness of people to work with them and the people wanting them, right? Wanting them by their sides, wanting them as to become part of their institutions. So that's a little kind of academic confidence work that one needs to do before she starts asking for money. The other thing is, and this is a real kind of dollars argument, but I've mentioned this before on the podcast, and we can link up these stats in the show notes. Women in academia make about 81 cents on the dollar compared to men. And it's been that way for at least the last 10 years. Even though more and more women are getting faculty positions, we still haven't closed the wage gap. So one way to close the wage gap is to get professional development funding. And yes, it's not the same, but if your university, many universities, especially public ones, have like limits on how they can raise people's salaries. So what I would like to suggest is that one way to raise your salary, right? One way to get more support, financial support from your university, is to have them fund your professional development. So if you can go into some statistics about wage gap, salary discrepancy, if you can go into your argument with those statistics and those numbers for your university, you can make the argument that you are doing an excellent job and that you want to do even better. And for that reason, they should fund your professional development because they're not going to raise your salary. So that you need to find other ways of getting the university to support you. So those are some mindset things to go through when you're thinking about asking your university for professional development funding. Now I want to take a few minutes to talk about how to make this argument connecting to the strategic plan. Again, what you want to do is quote the university to itself, right? So you need to first go through that strategic plan and pull the possible places that you can connect your professional development program to. So I'm going to do this with an example. And the example I'm going to use is my own professional development program that I've created called Amplify. The subtitle of Amplify is Faculty Writing Accelerator. Amplify is a program for tenure-track women who are still pre-tenure. And the promise of the program is to go up for tenure with confidence. The way that we deliver on that promise is by centering your writing, supporting you as you center your writing, and supporting you really very much, not just like with professional development and how-to kinds of things to do, but also emotionally as you prepare to go up for tenure. So here's some different ways that we support and how you could connect those to strategic plan. So my program includes 9 workshops on the Amplify Framework. And the Amplify Framework are basically the 9 essential shifts you need to make or areas that you need to focus on in order to center your writing and go up for tenure with confidence. One of those spokes of I'm picturing the framework in my head. It looks like kind of like overlapping circles with spokes on the outside. And there's 9 spokes. One of those is creating writing systems. So if you are a person who your writing keeps falling to the bottom of the list, you're not getting publications out because you can't find time to write. One of the things that we do in the program is teach you how to find time to write so that you can get your publication pipeline flowing. We also teach you how to both strategize and manage your publication pipeline, which are 2 different things. We work a lot on strategy, like where you want to place your pieces and who you want to metaphorically kind of sit beside or who's in the room with you, who you're talking to. And then also real things that you can do to manage the flow of projects through your pipeline. So all of that is connected to writing and publishing more. So if you look in the strategic plan and it says anything about research and writing and publications and getting the university's name out there in the world of research, then you can connect the Amplify program to your strategic plan and say, the Amplify supports this goal in the strategic plan because it teaches me how to do these things. And remember, when I say this goal in the strategic plan, you're actually going to quote the strategic plan. And then you're going to explain how Amplify supports that plan. By the way, if you want to learn more about Amplify, I'm going to tell you at the end of this podcast how you can apply for the program. But during the application process, there's an interview. And in that interview, you will learn all the details and we can really help you actually work through this argument that you can make to your university. So it's not just you having to look at a brochure or something and then make the argument, but we'll actually help you when we're live in that interview if you're a good fit for the program. All right, a couple of other things about Amplify that you can connect to strategic plan. One of the things we talk about is mentoring. We know that women have a bigger mentoring burden than other people on campus, and you might be feeling that yourself. And especially young faculty members, new faculty, pre-tenure faculty, a lot of times students gravitate to them, because you're new and you're doing work in an exciting area, right? But depending on how your university protects you or not from service work, it can be hard to balance mentoring, and it can be hard when in your heart and one of the motivations for being a professor is to do that kind of mentoring work. So one of the things we teach you in Amplify is how to do that mentoring without burning out, how to do mentoring with boundaries, how to also teach or mentor students in a way that doesn't perpetuate the culture of work in academia. So one thing you could do, look in your strategic plan and see if they say anything about mentoring or developing excellent PhD programs or excellent master's programs. See how you might connect to mentoring that is part of the strategic plan. And then one other area, something that's really important in Amplify, we focus first, the first thing we do in the program is create both an academic mission statement and a milestone map. And the reason that we do that is because I've found that one of the most important things we can do as academics is cultivate focus and direction. Because if we don't do that for ourselves, then we will get blown in the wind by people pulling on us and asking us to do projects that maybe don't exactly fit. And then we say yes because we're like, but we need another publication, right? So by starting out with a mission and a milestone map, we get very focused very early in the program about what to take on and what to say no to. Developing that mission and that milestone map really helps professors figure out what they want their impact in academia to be, and really their impact in the world to be. So if you can look at your strategic plan and find very specific impacts that the university wants to have in the world and align them with what you want to do, you can also say, okay, Amplify helps me to have this impact that is also in the strategic plan, because we develop that focus, that clarity, that academic mission and milestone statement so that then we can go out and enact that impact in a clear and amplified way. All right. In addition, other things about Amplify that would connect to the strategic plan. Again, if they say anything about retention of women faculty, if they say anything about peer mentoring or networking, in Amplify, we do a really unique to academia thing, which is that we do mastermind calls. And if you've ever done group coaching through other professional development programs, it's fine. But I was looking as a writing coach, I was looking for a way to do group coaching in a structured way that also really honored the people in the group and not just the coach. And so I came up with this idea of borrowing from the business world the concept of masterminding and hot seats. So what we do in Amplify is we do the program in cohorts. The cohorts are small, so 6 to 8, could go up to 10, but the cohorts start with It's a small group and you travel through the year-long program together. All right. So you're going to be really developing deep relationships just by being in a year-long program together. But through the mastermind calls, what we do is every call, the calls are an hour long, every call, 2 people are on the metaphorical hot seat. And what that means is that the person who's on the hot seat gets to bring to the group their question, concern, the thing they need support around, and the group responds. And what we've found is that because the groups are diverse in terms of place on the tenure track, in terms of university they come from, in terms of goals, in terms of race, ethnicity, nationality, other things, right? Everybody is, in terms of ability to, we really have a lot of diversity in the program. Because of that diversity, you get this amazing advice. So these calls are guided by a writing coach, but the best calls are the ones when the writing coach says nothing. It's the people in the group who rally and support and say their experience and give suggestions to the person in the hot seat. And what happens there is we get this, like I said, deep peer mentoring and connection that you just don't find in other places in academia. So the way to connect that to the strategic plan is to talk about networking, peer mentoring, developing relationships across universities. You will get that in the Amplify program so you can connect to strategic goals that are in your strategic plan that way. There's lots of other things inside of the Amplify program that are just wonderful, including one-on-one support, online community that's not run through Facebook, where we can talk about writing and being a professor every day, a big repository of very valuable workshops. We also have live events. So we have this year, if you're listening in real time, this year in January 2020, we have a 2.5-day event in San Juan where all the Amplifier participants will come and they'll get specific workshops around academic publishing, and then they will get eyes on their writing. So we bring and we actually workshop whatever 5 to 10 pages of writing you want to bring, we will workshop that. It could be statements for your tenure documents. It could be an article, piece of an article, a book proposal, whatever. You're going to get feedback from both peers and writing coaches live and in person. And really, you get that continued deep support from and really like community building. And again, we don't get that inside of academia, so we needed to create it. I decided to create it outside. So I hope that those examples of how you can look at a program and connect it to the strategic plan are helpful. When you're making an argument for professional development funding, you want to get away from the idea like, me, do this for me. And you want to throw the words of the university back in their faces and say, like, you said you wanted this, here's how I can do it for you, but I need this kind of support. Okay. So you make it about them, not about you. All right. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode of the Academic Women Amplified podcast. If you would like to apply for the Amplify Faculty Writing Accelerator program, you can go to bit.ly/pre-tenure. Altogether, no dashes. That's bit.ly/pre-tenure. We'll link it up in the show notes. What you will start is a process of figuring out whether the Amplify Faculty Writing Accelerator program is a good fit for you. It is an application-only program. We don't take just anyone. You have to apply. And here's what the application process looks like. You go to that link, which is bit.ly/pre-tenure, bit.ly/pre-tenure. And what that will take you to is a beautiful little online form application. Fill out that form. It's only about 8 or 9 questions long. It will not take you more than 5 minutes or so. And when you submit that form, you will get the opportunity to schedule a 10-minute call, which we call a Tenure 10 call. What happens on this call is basically, it's like a lightning rapid fire call with one of our writing coaches who will talk to you about the program, ask you a lot of questions. And what we're looking for on those 10-year 10 calls is to see if the program is a good fit for you. If you both decide that it is, then you will be invited to get a tenure strategy session with me. And that is a longer call. We schedule about 30 minutes, and I talk to you specifically about what you need to go up for tenure with confidence and how the program will support you in that. So that's the application process, and we invite you to apply. If I were you, I would actually right now go to bit.ly/pre-tenure to apply for the program and find out more about it so that you can make your argument for professional development funds. Don't wait. This program is on rolling admissions. So we have periodic start dates. We're always enrolling the program. So you want to find out now, even if you're thinking, oh, maybe I'll do that in March, or maybe I'll do it in the summer or whatever. Don't wait to apply. Apply now, because the wheels of academia are slow in turning. And so you're going to want to know everything about the current iteration of the Amplify program before you start to try to make your argument for professional development funding. So you do your part, which is the background work, finding out the places on campus you might tap for institutional funding are. Go download your strategic plan. Go to bit.ly/tenure and apply for Amplify, and you will be well on your way to getting the support that you need to go up for tenure with confidence and to avoid overwork and burnout and really be your best self living your life in academia. What we're really trying to do with this podcast, with the professional development programs that we offer, is to change the way that women experience academia. If you are ready for a change, go to bit.ly/pre-tenure and apply now. I'm so honored that you spent your valuable time listening to this episode. Thank you. Before I go, I want to ask you, do you have an almost done article languishing in a virtual drawer? How about a new writing project that you just haven't been able to make the time to start yet? How about a piece of writing in the messy middle that you need to revive? Well, I've got the solution for you. Writing Sprint Blueprint. The Writing Sprint Blueprint is a powerful productivity tool for overwhelmed academics who want to get stalled out publications out of their pipelines and into the world. And it's only $27. And when you grab Writing Sprint Blueprint, you'll get my private motivational podcast feed called Stick to the Plan. It's 10 mini episodes of around a minute each that you can listen to right from your favorite podcast app to motivate you during your writing sprint. So what are you waiting for? Follow the link in the show notes to get Writing Sprint Blueprint today. I'll see you inside.